G'day everyone, it's your Uncle Jojo. Great to see you all again. Today I have been privileged enough to be invited over to a house where we've got some tools that people are going to get rid of. Thank you very much to the family that invited me over for this. I love going to markets for used tools, and this here is a gold mine to us carpenters. We've got some amazing tools here, and I tell my apprentices and my students at TAFE all the time to go to Trash and Treasures or to go to people's houses that have got garage sales and find old tools. And if you step over this way, I'll show you why. Come over here. Here we've got Western Germany, so it must be a pretty old clamp, an F-clamp, an adjustable F-clamp, high quality steel, really good, and we've got quite a few of them across here. We've even got some that are super long, which are a 1 meter adjustable F-clamp that goes all the way. If I could just pull that out, like look at that. Here, we don't see these too often. This is one of my favorites. This is called a pipe clamp. What we do is we press that and we can slide it. I used to use these a lot in my apprenticeship because we used to get a piece of old cast iron and we used to just cut that off on site, so it didn't cost me anything as an apprentice. And I'd get a couple of these and I'd attach them and I'd be able to use them not just on site but at home if I was just doing like a bit of a home handyman job. Here is one of the very first quick grip clamps that you'll ever see. So you just push, it's all metal, it's not plastic, you just push that and that slides up, and then obviously your clamp will fit in. And then that can't slide down. Again, it's an adjustable F-clamp. Then you can just push it and slide it back out of place. How super cool is that? I get a bit of a flinch every time I see one of these. Thanks Dad for that. He used to make me do this all the time when we did home renos when I was a kid. But this is a flaring tool, the old school flaring tool. You used to stick your copper pipe in here and then there, give it a good whack by hand. And if you have this, let me just show you quickly. This here is called a hand clamp. And a hand clamp is kind of like a handle. And we used to be able to, then you'd put your pipe in there and then you could adjust these, obviously. Clamp down on your pipe, and then you get your flaring tool, stick it on the end, and then give it a good whack, and that'd give you something to hold on to. It was a good little trick, especially if you're making small bits and pieces. So again, thanks Dad. I get a bit of a twitch every time I see one of those. Here we've got a hole saw, but it's an adjustable hole saw. How cool is that for an adjustable hole saw? So what we can do is just adjust this screw here. This section will fold out, will slide out or slide back in. And then we can choose the width. We can choose the size of the hole that we want to drill. Dies, look at all these. We've got dies here so we can make our own threads on bolts. And this is the tool for it. And we've got two different sizes here as well. Line levels, look at all these line levels. You don't get line levels like that much anymore. Good steel, new leather punches, box full of leather punches. Here, check this one out. This one is an adjustable hole cutter, and we can just unscrew this. This will slide out and it shows us our measurements on the side. And then as it drills, it'll actually cut. And these blades are super sharp and it'll cut whatever we need to out. So you'd usually use that on a ply or something like that. One of the original hole cutters. One of the things that I talk to my apprentices about with old tools like this is the great steel that used to come in it. Here we've got, this is a Wiltshire, and it's an Australian made Wiltshire, and it's a rasp, and we used to just kind of get our edges down with something like that. Another made in Australia when things mattered, when they were made in Australia. How's that? Bevel square. Fantastic metal, really good adjuster. You can just hand tighten that slightly and then you can get it to whichever angle we need and tighten that right off and it won't move. Fantastic. See that? You go to a market, you won't find things like this in stores anymore. These are things that you'll only get from a market. Spoke shave. How cool is that? Made in England. Super good steel. It's a number 51, and there's a mini one here too. Spoke shaves. Spoke shaves come in super handy when we're doing fine carpentry. Old Stanley chisel, good steel. You don't have to use these. You can get a good knife maker. If you can find or meet a good knife maker, you can get them to melt it down and make you knives or chisels for your work. Here is one of my favourites. Handsaw. Here is the sharpener, the tooth straightener for your saw. So you'd put that on there and then you'd press the handle and it would reset the teeth on your saw, and then you could sharpen them as well. Small plane, hand plane. I wouldn't call it a palm plane. It's a little bit too big for a palm plane, but it's a Stanley. It's made in England. Really good plane nonetheless. That just needs a bit of a buff up and a clean up. That'll be spot on. Good sharpening stone. Roofer's square. Oh, look at this one. Sheffield, England, Marples. Marples turning tools. Brand new almost in a box. Fantastic find. You don't find metal like this much anymore. It's really important that you look for old school metal or metal that's been made in Sheffield, in England. The Japanese also have some spectacular metals, so you can find really good Japanese metal or really good English metal. Australia has got some really good metal products, but we don't really manufacture much again in Australia anymore. Now, this is something that's very cool. Soldering. Check this out. These are the old school solderers. So what we used to do is heat these up, hence why these are copper. Look at this one. This one's seen a bit of use. And when you'd heat it up, there's a bit of flux. So you'd rub the flux onto your solderer and also onto your lead. Here's my lead here. So you could roll that in there. And then obviously you'd heat this up. And then that's actually how you used to, sorry, I wouldn't be burning my hands off. And that's actually how you used to solder on site quite often, on lead flashings. All of your old guttering and flashings used to be soldered together on your roofs. So, bit of yesteryear, but a good one nonetheless. Good steel, yet again, on files. You know, you don't get steel like this much anymore. If you do, then they wear down a fair bit or they cost you an arm and a leg. These won't cost me much and a brilliant find. But this is only the tip of the iceberg of what I found. All right, so not only did I get invited into this house to have a look over at some of these old tools, and what a privilege that was, thank you very much, but step over this way, check this out. This here is actually an edging plane. The bench has been handmade and has been welded, and here is an old school iron. Bit of garden hose. I wouldn't recommend this at home, please. This is your burner, your iron. So what you used to do was put down a piece of timber onto here, a panel board of some sort. Let's say plyboard or particle board. Then you used to heat up the iron, glue all of your particle board, get a piece of veneer, timber veneer, lay it over the top, then get your iron and iron it down. So what it would do is heat up that glue and bond the bottom of the glue of the veneer onto the actual particle board or panel board. Then once you were in, you used to put this into place, clamp it, and then you'd get this and take off all of your edges. So you'd be able to edge all of your panel boards into place. And then you'd flip your panel board around and then you'd edge it again. So then you'd get everything with a nice square edge all the way through. Got a perfect 45 here. Super cool. And I mean, that's just one thing of yesteryear. Made in Penrose, London. I did a little bit of research and found out the bloke that used to live here, this is what was called a war bond house. The bloke that lived here, his name was Bernie Baylis. Now Bernie Baylis left home at the age of 17, lied on his conscription papers and went over and fought in the Second World War in Borneo. When he came back, he was a printer by trade. When he came back, he was given a house. I don't think war bond houses, were given to them, but they were given to them for a less cost. And it was a very low interest rate that they had to pay it back. Well, least we could do for fighting for our country. So I did a little bit more research on Bernie, and Bernie was self-taught. He actually was a printer by trade, and he learned all of these carpentry tricks, everything that I've seen here today. He learned all of that by reading and by talking to guys in the trade. A lot of tradies died in the Second World War, so it was in the community's interest to share as much information as they could with each other. Everybody would bond together. So Bernie would teach people about printing, and people would teach Bernie about craftsmanship in carpentry. So he, step over this way, made these. How cool are these? These are hand carved out. Look at that mortise block. Say this is all hardwood here. This is all hardwood here, but check this out here. I say that's a Huon pine. My dad tells me that's kauri. We'll discuss that over a couple of beers or a whiskey later on. Have a look at this. This is a dovetail join. So he's hand dovetailed every single one of these, and look how fine they are. I mean, you've only got 15 mil at the back and maybe 8 mil at the front, all the way through. Now, he's done that on both sides. Fine carpentry like that takes years of practice, of beating on your craft. You don't just learn things like that on a machine. You don't just learn things like that by typing things into a computer. That there is a hand-made join that is worked on over and over again to perfect it like that. So in some places he's got a big 10 mil join, and in other places he's got a dovetail that's only 5 mil. And that's on all of these cabinets. And it's high quality material. Everything here is high quality material. We've talked about timber many times before, about the different types of saps in them and how if they're too much of a young tree, they don't have the strength. Really good hardy timber, really well made furniture to last the test of time. So that's about 65 years old. I mean, good quality, all of these slide. And even these drawers here, look at that. Dovetail joins. And look how super fine those dovetail joins are. I mean, that is craftsmanship in its best. And red cedar. Beautiful red cedar drawers. All of them, look at that. And they all slide perfectly. No drawer runners or anything. It was just made to suit, made to fit. So, on doing a little bit more research about Bernie, the family invited me into their house. And I have to say, what a privilege that was. I learned a lot about that press. He actually had handmade his whole kitchen by himself. And, well, actually, come with me. Let's go check it out. So check this out. Front door, curved head. All the windows along here, curved head. Bernie handmade all of these. One of my favourite things about this, look at this door handle in the middle of the door. You don't see handles like that much anymore. These days you won't ever really see radiused heads. Now this house, when it was first the war bond house, was only a 2-bedroom weatherboard. Now Bernie has actually bricked in the whole thing and then redone all the doors, the bathroom, the plastering, the brickwork, the cabinetry, all of it. Now check in this, come over into the kitchen. So here in the kitchen, this is what I was talking about before. He has handmade all of the panel work, all of the timber panel work for this kitchen. He pressed it all himself, he edged it all himself. Super impressive job. And taught himself how to do all of it. Watching this system. And that's all handmade and hand pressed. How cool is that? Make the most out of what you got. That is the true meaning of make the most out of what you got. How good is that? So I could be doing my ironing whilst I'm making myself a coffee. That's pretty awesome. But look at the skill that's involved in making that. That is all handmade. Circular heads, radius heads. Actually, I don't think I've ever seen that in Australia. I've seen it over in England a couple of times. Look at this beautiful greenery out here, actually. Yeah, that was all handmade as well. On a side note. Thank you very much to the family for inviting me in. We only just came here just to have a quick look at some tools that they were going to get rid of, and we've been allowed to come into the house and look at some fine craftsmanship as well, and from yesteryear, which I always love looking at craftsmanship for yesteryear. Any questions or queries about picking up tools or where to get your tools from, send me an email and I'll let you know. But there's always markets, there's always car boot sales, and there's always trash and treasures. Best places to always get old school tools from. Thanks for watching, and like always, stay awesome.